What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Field Notes podcast. Tonight we are 21 days from departure to Mexico. So tonight we want to take a little bit of time and kind of break down what we're looking at, some of the things that we're working through as we're preparing to go. Important things to consider as you're preparing to go one day. And yeah, so I'm excited to break it down. Last week we were out because we had a virus run through the family. That was very difficult, but praise God we came through. We're healed now. And all right, so with that, we're going to talk a few things that we find to be incredibly important when it comes to preparing to go. As a missionary, there are many things that we need to consider, and it goes a lot further than just how much money do I have. Right? There are so many things that play into preparing to go as a missionary. There are so many things that play into living in another nation. There are many things that foreigners just don't consider when they're stepping out for the first time to go and live in another nation. And so we're going to kind of break down some of what that looks like, at least what that's looked like in our lives. Over the past few years as we've been living as missionaries down in Mexico and then in Guatemala as well. We'll kind of break some of that down and things that we found important to consider as missionaries about to move on to the field. Yeah? So, Soraya, with that, start. Number one, first thing.
To do the research about how to cross a border and the things that are required for you to enter into the country.
And I would say, on that note, bigger scale, just do your research. Do your research on everything. If you're considering a place, somewhere that you feel like God is calling you to go, do all the research that you possibly can on it.
Yeah, like it helps, first to look into, obviously, the government, what do they have online to share about it, but also to see other people's into their personal experiences, because sometimes the governments are not updated in third world countries. Usually there will be things missing, or like you will end up coming across corrupted people and you end up having to do different things.
No, I will say if all of our preparation had just been off of what the website said the first time we went to Mexico, man, we would have been so wrong.
Yeah.
And that's Mexico. Mexico is not hard to get into. It's not difficult to travel through. There are risks and dangers, of course, but Mexico is not a hard place to go. But if you were to flip that and say, you're moving to Afghanistan, well, there's a whole bunch of things that are going to be different there. A lot of things that you're not going to get off of the website. So it's important that you really do a deep dive and research kind of where you're going and what you're looking at and what to expect as well.
Yeah.
Not just on the legal side of things, but also on the local side of things.
Yeah, and I guess we can share specifically in Mexico and Guatemala.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's somebody out there that can use this help.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I forgot what I think.
Well, so even now that we have crossed before, we still try to update ourselves, in case they have changed any laws, or in case there's invasion, war, anything can happen. Like for instance, right now, as you all know, there has been a lot of rumors of wars, and obviously, right now the president of Mexico has sent troops into the border to obstruct and to prevent from the American troops to come into Mexico, and obviously they're just trying to target the cartels. But you will think, oh, it's alright, you're getting political in here. But unfortunately, politics does affect us as missionaries when we're traveling. And right now,
that's true. There was one time I was traveling between Pakistan and India, and I got detained over the politics between the two nations.
See? So it is important to be on top of those things too, and obviously seeing all perspectives and seeing it helps us that I know Spanish, so I can see the news from the locals in Mexico, and he can see the news from here, of course. So right now we try to use those just to use cautions and preventions and look different routes to take in case that will affect us.
Yeah, no, I think especially on our last trip, we learned a lot about moving through Mexico and working around people. And what we realized is that there's no one guaranteed way of doing it. There's no one, easy way of doing it.
Yeah.
What Google tells you is not normally what's the best choice.
Yeah, now remember there was one time Google told us to take this route to get to the village we were going. And when we ended there was a swing bridge.
It was a rope bridge for us to cross, but we had our full size vehicle.
So we ended up having to figure out on our own.
Yeah, so we ended up having to route around the mountain coming from the other direction, and then we almost fell off the mountain, drove off the mountain. But either way, like Google doesn't have all the answers. And so as missionaries, the word tells us that we need to be wise, obviously, that we need to exercise wisdom, that we need to be wise as serpents but harmless as doves. All these different things that Scripture tells us we need to, these characteristics that we need to have in our lives. And, I mean, it couldn't be any more accurate. Obviously, the Lord knew what he was saying whenever he said it, right? But it's important that we take that to heart and that we actually walk in wisdom, that we actually take that and not just go off of what a website says, not just go off of what the last YouTuber said. We need to take that and we need to put wisdom side by side with holiness and with the call, right? We can't allow fear to intervene, to get in the way. We can't allow confusion to get in the way, whether it's confusion through other travelers or whether it's confusion through there's political turmoil or whatever. There's a lot of things that play into the life of a missionary, right? But we can't allow those things to dictate or trip us up. The word says in Hebrews that we need to strip off everything that easily entangles us and run with endurance after Jesus, right? And so what we need to do as wise missionaries, as people, disciples that have been called by God to a specific place, what we need to do is we need to take wisdom, we need to take understanding, we need to take the calling, and we need to line all of them up in obedience unto Christ, right? So just because it's wise to go one way versus another does not mean that's what God desires that we would do, right? It would not have been wise for us to, drive out into the mountains to Mesa del Nayar. It would not have been wise because the roads were clearly not in good shape. I mean, there were boulders on the road that had fallen from the top of the mountain. That's not a wise place to go drive. It also wouldn't be considered wise for us to have driven the route that we took through Chiapas to get to the Guatemala border. Okay. That was clearly could have been handled better. But, what we need to do is we need to take wisdom right alongside the call and marry them up to one another, being led by the Holy Spirit. Anything you want to add on that?
No, that's perfect. That's true.
And so what we would say to those that are feeling called, those that are really feeling like the Lord is drawing you onto or into the mission field, into the harvest, okay, here's what you need to do. Step 1, you need to seek the Lord. You need to know where you're going. You need to know how you're going to get there. It's one thing if you're flying. It's not really possible to drive a van to Australia, but so you need to consider how you're going to get there. If you're going to drive, obviously we're driving on our trip. You need to research, how am I going to get there? What's it going to cost me? What do I need to do to prepare? What we've learned in our experience driving through Mexico is that whenever we get there, we have to get visas for ourselves. We have to import our vehicle, but it's a temporary import, so it will expire. And that import cost is $400 plus all of our visas, right? And so on top of that, we need to keep our U.S. insurance because our vehicle is still registered in the United States. On top of that, we need to have Mexican vehicle insurance because we're driving on their roads. And so, like, many different things that we've learned all have to fall into place. And if we miss a single step, it could delay us at the border. It could come with heavy fines.
Yeah.
If we were to drive beyond the checkpoint on the Mexican side of the border without having imported our vehicle, we would get huge fines and could potentially be
losing our car.
Yeah, we could get our vehicle taken away. And so it's really important to consider everything whenever you're getting ready to go. Obviously, anywhere you're going to go, you're going to need to get a longer term visa. You can't show up, get a 7-day visa, and that be it. So, start there. But where would you go from there? If you were planning your next trip, where would you go from there? You are planning your next trip.
Where would I go from there?
You needed a visa. What would you do after that?
Oh, yeah. Money. Yeah, I'll start, saving the money that I need for it. Like you say, you already lay out how much you're going to need to cross the border. Okay, I need this much money. Without it, I cannot cross. I cannot get in. After that, you also have to have, again, at the borders, will ask you where are you going and what is your reasons for coming into our country. You have to have those already laid out.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go in depth.
In depth.
That's the word. Explaining every single detail. They just need a highlight of what you're doing there.
Yeah.
And then from there, I will have a destination.
Yeah. Ultimately, that destination is incredibly important. Whenever we were at the border between Mexico and Guatemala, there was a guy that was coming in. Was he from Korea or Japan?
Nobody could know. He was Asian for sure.
Okay. Nobody knew where he was from. Nobody knew where he was going. All that they could tell was that based on the stamps in his passport, he had been traveling through Central America, and he was continuing on. He was part of a group of people. I don't know if you would call it a caravan. It may have just been a group of tourists.
Yeah, because in that moment, there was a group of caravan people trying to cross into
Lots of illegal immigration.
Mexico. And at the time, there was masses coming into Mexico to come to the United States. So that side of the border was trying to prevent people from coming for those reasons. So they were giving, they were telling them that there were tourists coming to work for tourism. So anyway, they already had so many flaws trying to explain what was going on.
Yeah. Ultimately, though, this guy he got held up at the border. He was trying to come in. He wanted to travel through Mexico, or at least that's what he was trying to help them understand. But he didn't speak Spanish. They didn't speak his language, and so there was like mass confusion. But the problem he was running into was, okay, if you're coming into the country, you need to have a point of destination. You need to have a point of departure, and you need to also have a place where you're staying for the duration of your trip.
Yeah.
And so this guy, he was trying to come in on a 6-month visa, which is how we always travel. He wanted to come in on a 6-month visa.
But they didn't have the money for it.
He didn't have his money, and on top of that, he also did not have a place where he was going to be staying the whole time. And so the problem that they were giving him was, listen, if we let you in, you have a hotel room for one night. How do we know that you're not going to spend the next 5 months and 29 days living on the streets? And, that's not what they want. So, he needed to prove how long he was going to be there, where he was going to be, and how he was going to be, providing for himself, or else they wouldn't let him in. And so, these are things that we need to already have figured out before we show up at the border. You need to have an understanding of, this is where I'm going. This is for how long I'll be there. This is my plan while I'm there. And like Soraya said, it doesn't need to be super in depth. We don't need to tell them, okay, I'm going to have breakfast at this restaurant. I'm going to go visit my friend on that street, and then I'll go, here or there or whatever. It doesn't have to be like that. But simply a plan whenever we go, we're going to Monterrey. We've got a ministry that we're connected with there. We're going to be staying at this address for the duration of our stay, and we'll be departing at the end of our 6-month visa. And it's just that simple. And that's more than enough information for them, as long as you have somewhere to go that's not going to be the streets.
Yeah.
And so, those are things that we've kind of learned as we've gone, though. The second time we went in, it wasn't like that, and thankfully we didn't get any complications. Whenever we crossed the border into Baja, we didn't have those answers.
No, we didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't suggest traveling that way though. as soon as we got down into southern Baja, we ended up not having a place to go. So wisdom says it's better to just go ahead and figure out this is where I'm going to be staying. Agreed?
Oh, well, yeah, but sometimes being a servant of the Lord is complicated.
It's true.
Sometimes, yes, that's wisdom. Sometimes you just have to roll with it.
Yeah.
But another thing that I would suggest too is double check your paperwork, even if the agent from that country is doing everything. Just double check, because, for example, Mexico.
Yeah.
They like to scam people. And even though we were not beginners on this crossing thing, they still rob us in our faces.
Yeah.
It wasn't until we were crossing the second border all the way south, miles after miles, that we noticed that they never gave us our visas. They stole our money, and we were traveling the whole time without that visa.
Yeah. We lost about $600. Basically what had happened as we were crossing into Mexico at the northern border, we had filled out all of the information for our visas for ourselves. It was a 6-month visa. We had filled out all the documents. We handed them the documents. They said, okay, it's going to be like $600 or whatever. So we go to pay, and they're like, oh, our credit card machine is down. We can't take any electronic payment. It has to be cash. And I was like, okay, well, man, it's a good thing I have cash. Little did I know that they were going to steal the cash, not
update our visas.
right. Our visa it didn't show that we had ever gotten them.
Yeah, they gave me a paper, but I just didn't double check or anything. I just trusted them until I got to the, far away to even
The Guatemala border.
Yeah, until even do something about it. I couldn't even remember his face to even report him or anything. So yeah, double check your documents. Just make sure that everything is lined out. Do not leave the booth.
Always get receipts.
Yeah, and what we're doing now, thankfully we have been blessed with cameras, so we can just,
You actually are not allowed to record at those.
I know, but I still can, use the thing or something.
The important thing to remember is that receipts are the most important thing.
Yeah.
Always get your receipt. Whenever we're leaving Mexico and moving on to Guatemala, or I guess in this case we're going into Belize first, we have to have a receipt that we receive at the border with the U.S. obtaining our Mexican visa. So we have to make sure we get that receipt. And receipts are important anyway. Whenever we go, especially now that we're affiliated with a ministry, whenever we go, we have to have receipts to be able to show where all of the money goes. And if we can't prove where money goes, well, then it falls back on us, and we look like we're stealing. And that's the last thing that we want. So, from the end of our last trip forward, we always obtain receipts. Always get receipts. We keep the receipts until the end, just to prove where everything has gone and that everything lines up. And you can't be called into question. The word tells us that we need to live above reproach, and this is one way that as missionaries we live above reproach, by having proof that we are good stewards of the money that the Lord entrusts to us, that we're able to use it wisely, that we're not just going and blowing money on vacation. We're using it wisely for the benefit of the kingdom. And so just kind of removing the opportunity for the enemy to bring accusation against you.
Yeah.
What else would you think?
All right. Well, what I am doing now also, since traveling for us, it becomes long term, and decluttering what I own. So going through our stuff. This time is different than the past times, because the past times we have just grab a backpack and go. Nah.
But the past times we were also going with the understanding we're coming back.
Yeah. Even so, we always have the perspective, what if we can't come back? and so we were not collecting things or saving anything. Every time we travel, we just give everything away again. So this time we are saving things because our hope is once we reach our final destination, we can have a home and, mail our things back. So what I'm doing right now is trying to decide what to leave and what not to take. So
Yeah.
that's one thing.
Yeah. No, one thing that's also important to remember, especially as missionaries, is we go where the Spirit leads, right? And so where we may be sent to a place for a time, that doesn't mean that's home forever.
Yeah.
At least not for us. For us, we'll end up in one place for 4 months. We'll end up in another place for 6, and we're constantly moving. We always, for the past 4 years we haven't had a stable home in 4 years. And so, that's one of those things as missionaries, like, you have to always be ready. You got to be ready. Some people, like, the Lord will send them to a place full time and they'll never leave. And that's cool. I have nothing against that. I think that's great. But there are others like ourselves who it's not played out that way. And so you've got to be understanding of what God has called you to do. You need to have that understanding before you ever start making plans. I know several people, but there was a family that maybe a year or so ago, they packed up and they moved to Thailand. And, they went, family of maybe 5 or 6, they took, I think, 12 suitcases, and that was all that they had. They got their furniture whenever they got over there, but 12 suitcases is not a lot whenever you consider the size of the family. That's about 2 per person. Mm-hmm. And so, it's just one of those, like, when it comes to the call of God, you've got to be willing to let go of everything in the sense of, possessions.
Yeah.
Obviously we know that our lives are not our own. If we're talking about being missionaries, man, we know we're ready to let go of everything, right? But when it comes to this sense of possessions, things that you hold dear to you, I was raised up where things had sentimental value, and so, like, I got a birthday card from my grandmother and grandfather when I was 5, right? And I kept that until I was like 21, right? Like, things like that they were sentimental. But man, we can't be sentimental about everything. We can't just keep gathering and gathering and gathering for ourselves, because those things are going to become roadblocks for us in walking out obedience. They will be the things that keep you drawn to a place. And an example of that outside of that birthday card would be our farm. We had our farm, started it up in 2020 during COVID, and that was the one thing that, like, we didn't want to let go of. It became our home. It became a place of safety, a refuge, so to say. And that was one thing that, like, man, I didn't want to let it go. It became sentimental to me. It was like a place of independence, a place of freedom, and I didn't want to let go of it. But, I knew that was the one thing that was keeping me from saying, okay, Lord, I'm all in. And so it was a joy to let that go. But also, just on a common sense side of things, whenever you travel, you literally can't fit everything. For us, because we've got the 6 kids, we had to get a bigger vehicle just to fit the stuff that we need. But we can't carry just a whole bunch of extra junk.
No, especially because as you cross borders, if you're traveling by car, they search your car.
It's true.
They're trying to look for drugs, extra people, things that they don't want in their country. So I remember, you remember.
I remember.
We used to put, since our car was small, we have to put all our luggage all the way on the top. And then he would have to carry it down and up every time we would cross borders or checkpoints.
And the border agents would not help. So I had to do it all by myself.
You have to open it. So it becomes a hassle bringing so many stuff.
Yeah. It's just not practical. Mm-hmm. It's so much easier to throw it in a backpack and go.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But as we said, that comes with a high cost. Not financially, but, it comes with the cost of comfort, I guess.
Yeah. and it does become financial. Like for instance, right now I was just thinking. I mean, you really cannot get rid of so many clothes for yourself just because in Mexico, Guatemala, men are smaller. Their bodies are built different. So for him to go find clothes at the store, at the supermarket, or even a street market, he cannot find something that he can fit properly.
Yeah. For example, whenever we went to Guatemala last time, we got there. It had been, 95 degrees in Mexico?
Yeah.
We get to our village in Guatemala, and it's 35 degrees. That's like freezing. And, we had to go down the mountain and get clothes for everybody from the resale shops. And that was great, except for myself. All of the clothes that we found for me, they only came to here. And
Yes.
so, I needed the warmth, but man, that was, wearing a crop top is not ideal,
Yeah, no.
so.
So I'm learning how to sew now.
Yeah, praise God.
But yeah, that's a great thing also, whenever you get rid of things, as you travel, the Lord will bless you with more.
Yeah.
And the resale shops, like in Guatemala, they were asking 50 cents for like brand new clothes, brand stuff. So that was great to find that store.
But also, on the more challenging side of things, and in preparation and knowing what's coming, I think Nicaragua is our
challenge.
our big red
Surprise.
flag. Yeah.
Yes, like,
It's one of those, like, man, for the past year I've had my eyes on Nicaragua, and I've been excited about getting there. It's the one place in Central America that
you have not been?
it's one of two places. I've also not been to Belize.
Okay.
But I've been to all of the others, and man, I love it. But Nicaragua has been this kind of a place of mystery to me, and I'm always intrigued by mystery. I always desire to understand it. And so I've been excited about Nicaragua. That was actually one of the places that we could have called home. And so we were doing a lot of research, and in the beginning, the research was great. It's cheap there. Obviously, it's a communist nation, so it's not the easiest place. But nonetheless, it had a lot of good going for it. We even found we could rent an entire hotel, book out all the rooms, receive rent payments from a coffee shop in part of the hotel, and man, it was just like, this is like the ideal place for us to go. But the Lord kind of moved us on and said that's not it. So as much as I want to have a coffee shop, it's not time. But anyway, Nicaragua was one of those that it seemed like a great opportunity. But then, as we're doing more research, we find out, oh, hey, they just banned the Bible in Nicaragua. They just banned all other literature in Nicaragua, at least from foreigners coming in. I'm sure that people there have their books, and it's no big deal. But as for us, we're not allowed to bring any of that stuff in. And so, learning even as we go, how do we go about this now? It's been somewhat of a challenge because we thought we had the plan figured out. Then we had to back up, we had to zoom out, we had to come up with a new plan. And that new plan had like 4 different variations, and Soraya was not excited about having to call and talk to the embassy.
Yeah,
Anyway,
okay, I'll have to say
the
that.
point is that whenever something came up that kind of interfered with the plan, we had to figure out, okay, how do we not sidestep around it, but how do we work our way through this in wisdom, in understanding, without purposefully breaking laws and getting ourselves barred out of a country, because the last thing I want is to get deported before we even get inside. So all that to say, research is so important. Understanding where you're going, looking at, because up to this point, like, we know, okay, we're going to Panama. We know that our intention is to get there, and we have to go through here, and here to get there. But man, it's important that you break it all down, that you have the understanding of everywhere that you're going.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Because ultimately, like, the last thing that you want is to get to Nicaragua and then find out, oh, yeah, no, you've got 10 books stuffed under your seat. those are all not allowed here, so you're not even allowed to enter. And then we have to figure out, okay, what do we do now?
And you will say, well, just throw them away.
Right? You would think.
You would think, but
You
no.
would think, but no, they just turn you around and say, no, you can't come in. So, lots of things to consider, but it's good to have the understanding beforehand, and to, yes, have a working plan, have an understanding of what you're going to do, but ultimately, the biggest key is just listening to the Holy Spirit, allowing the Holy Spirit to give direction, to bring wisdom and understanding, and because if we're going just off of our own wisdom, just off our own understanding, or just off our own plans, I mean, we're set up to fail from the very beginning. But that's why we have the Holy Spirit. We have Him as a comforter. We have Him as a guide. We have the Word. We have the calling. We have the understanding. I mean, God set us up for absolute success. We just have to rely on Him.
Yeah, and that's why, praying, reading our Bible, praying for those countries we're going to, just relying on Him and talking to Him about all these things.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah, no, I mean, ultimately, the practical stuff that we've been talking about, it's nothing compared to the spiritual side of things. Whenever we're preparing to go, it's incredibly important that we be in preparation, that we be getting into the Word, that we be getting more into the Word, that we be getting more into the Word. Right now we've been putting a lot of focus on prayer with our kids. Teaching them to be more confident in prayer, teaching them to be more comfortable in in the presence of the Lord, and seeking Him, not just because it's what we do, but because it's what they need to. And so we've been focusing recently on the spiritual side of things, and preparation as a family, not just individually. Obviously, that's important, but preparation as a family to step out into the field. As soon as we step out there, we've got a big fat target on our backs. And the enemy will do whatever he can to throw us off, to mess us up. And that's something I forgot to talk about this whenever we were recapping our trip across the East Coast.
Okay.
But one thing that we definitely recognized was that whenever we stepped out like that, man, our marriage was constantly under attack.
Yeah.
It was like every little thing was kind of a jab, and at first I'm sitting there like, what on earth is going on? Like, does Soraya just hate me now? Like, what happened? And then I see the way that I respond to her out of that, and she's then feeling the same thing, like, what's going on? And sorry, after about a day of dealing with it and being like, man, she must really hate me. I don't know what's going on. We're not seeing eye to eye on anything. And then it was like, oh, and I understood. We stepped out in faith. We've got a target on our backs, and so the enemy is coming against our marriage. And sorry, that was playing out both between you and I and the kids. The kids were dealing with things, and those things were becoming a struggle between you and I as well. And so, it's important as we're stepping out, it's important that we be aware of what's going on, because we're not each other's enemies. We're not in opposition to one another. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We wrestle against powers and principalities and rulers of the darkness. And so it's important that we be in preparation beforehand, so that from the very get-go, we understand exactly what's going on. Like, you're not my enemy. You're my wife. Okay. And we're partners in this, and we work through this together, and we can't, give in to those temptations, because, man, the enemy will do whatever he can to throw us off. And, in our past travels through Mexico and such, like, we've seen our marriage come under attack multiple times. And for some reason, it always catches me off guard. But, the enemy will do whatever he can to throw off or uproot or destroy the mission. And I don't know about for everybody else, but for us, our marriage is it's the most important thing, and so that's where he starts. And man, we got to be strong. We got to be prepared in order that we're not giving the enemy any ground in our relationship. And so on the spiritual side of preparation, guard your relationships. Be in prayer, be in fasting, be preparing yourself in understanding. Yes, we do come under attack because we're out there with targets on our backs, but like the enemy's got nothing on us. He has no control. He has no authority. He's already defeated. And if we can just keep our eyes on that and remember that, man, and then communicate with one another, like the enemy has nothing. He loses the battle from the very beginning. And so that's some of the things that like we're working through as we're preparing to go. Some of the things that it's important that others be preparing for and readying themselves for, because the last thing that the kingdom of God needs is a missionary family to get out to an area where, the gospel has never been before, and then their marriage starts coming under attack, and all that these people who are getting their first exposure to Jesus see is a couple that hates each other. Mm-hmm. But that's what the enemy does time and time and time again. I've read several books about missionaries that have gone before, and it's been the same case. The man will go out there and he's all for the mission and all for reaching the lost, and then the woman is either dragged out there because she didn't want to go in the first place, or she gets out there and then she's just like, oh, my husband has completely abandoned our family because it's all for the mission. It's all for the for the people out there, and forget the family. And as a missionary husband, I will say that is the worst decision that someone could make. God gives a man a family for a reason. Okay, that didn't really come out the way that I wanted it to. I'm thinking as I'm talking. Let me say it like this, okay? My ministry as a husband is first and foremost to my wife, to my children. God has given them to me, and it is my responsibility to lead them in obedience unto Christ, right? And from there, we carry the gospel to the world, right? But if I forsake my wife and my children, then I am no longer fit for service in the field. I wholeheartedly believe that. The Bible in one of Paul's writings, I'm blanking on which one. In one of Paul's writings, though, he says that it's important that a man know how to lead his family, how to guide his family, how to protect and nurture his family, to bring them up in the Lord. Because if he cannot carry his family in righteousness and obedience, then he's not even fit to be an elder. And so as men, as missionaries, like, first and foremost, the family every single time. It doesn't matter what's going on out there. I mean, you could be among the most lost tribe. If your family is with you, they are your first and foremost ministry. And I will not back down on that. And if you disagree, that's perfectly fine, but I won't back down on that. God gives us our families for a reason. And so we need to make sure that we're raising up our family in the Word, and that we're raising them up in truth and in love and in understanding that we are called to make disciples of the nations. And I think that if we could just get that right, and we could keep our relationships in order, and we could keep our perspectives in the right place, I think, for one, we would see huge success in ministry, and two, we would see huge success in our families.
I agree.
So, anything else you want to add?
No, but you're doing a great job, a good job.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I guess also you have to also, highlight that obviously the family does not come before the Lord in your personal relationship.
Of course.
Obviously, he has first place. But obviously, the Lord, everything he does is perfect, and everything works harmoniously. Need together. The families need together.
In harmony.
So, yeah, everything will be balanced if you give it all to the Lord.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
Just to make sure you don't give the wrong
idea. Of
idea.
course. God always comes first.
Yes.
No question on that. He comes first. His word comes first. and we just need to order our lives accordingly. Yeah. With that, though, I think we can go ahead and wrap up. Like I said at the beginning, we're 21 days out. If you keep coming back, keep following what's going on, you're going to see as we get closer, we'll be sharing more updates, things that we're working through, things that we're preparing. We'll take you on a little trip to Oklahoma, and then we'll take you down to the border. And man, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm really ready to go. I feel like the Lord has got a lot prepared, and man, I cannot wait to get back out there. Yeah. All right. Well, with that, we bless you guys. We love you. We'll see you on the next episode.